A humanidade enfrenta um inimigo silencioso, invisível e mortal. Um vírus que rapidamente se espalhou por todo o mundo.
That COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
China,
Itália,
Estados Unidos,
Portugal. O início inesperado de uma transmissão exponencial nunca antes vista.
O número de novos casos e de mortes tem vindo a subir de dia para dia e a situação está longe de estar controlada.
Alguns países adotaram medidas específicas à sua realidade, mas a maioria procedeu de modo semelhante.
A finalidade de todas as medidas tomadas foi sempre a mesma: evitar a ruptura dos serviços nacionais de saúde.
Desde a primeira hora que o país se preparou, em termos de orientação às suas instituições para que
Em Portugal, foi decretado o fim do estado de emergência, mas não o fim da pandemia.
E a comunidade estudantil? Onde se coloca nesta situação? Como será a nova realidade around the world?
Good night, everyone. My name is Gabriel Branco. I'm here joined by João Anastácio and Sara Santos, my colleagues at the Department of International Relations at AEFFUL. Today, we're going to do the last of our conferences in our conference cycle about the impact of COVID-19.
So today's topic will be COVID-19 around the world. We will be interviewing Janae Roberts, the contact person for APHA-ASP, which is the American Pharmacists Association Academy of Student Pharmacists, Piotr Skiba, which is the Vice President of External Affairs of PPSA, which is the Polish Pharmacy Students Association, and Jaume Romero, the former Vice President of Communication of FEF, which is the Spain Pharmacy Students Federation. For the participants, feel free to leave any further questions in the comment section, and we will try to go over as many of them as possible.
So we are going to start with a brief introduction of each of our speakers' associations before starting with the interview. So Janae, the floor is yours. Please tell us a little more about APHA-ASP.
All right, thank you, Sarah. So let's see here. Well, my name is Janae. I'm from APHA-ASP in the United States. So APHA was founded in 1852, so it's been around quite a while, and it's really the largest association of pharmacists in the United States. It represents more than 33,000 student pharmacists from many different regions, so all of the states are blocked off into different regions, and so there are 8 total. And we do all sorts of activities all year round for patient advocacy and public health and things of that nature. And then our mission is to be the collective voice of student pharmacists, to provide opportunities for professional growth, to improve patient care, and to envision and advance the future of pharmacy. And we are headquartered in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
So thank you, Janae. That sounds amazing. I'm going to ask now Piotr next to present PPSA. Piotr, you can go ahead, please.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm from PPSA, which is Polish Pharmaceutical Students Association, and we have 11 branches in Poland. In each city that there is a pharmaceutical university. I'm personally from Sosnowiec, which is a city in southern Poland. And there I'm a vice president of external affairs or external relations. As you can see, here is our board of the local city, the coordinators. Each city has its own boards and own coordinators. The coordinators vary between the cities. But we also have a main executive board and main coordinators for the whole national level. And our main goal is to increase the prestige of the pharmaceutical profession, to represent the interests of Polish pharmacy students, also to increase our practical experience and theoretical knowledge, to promote the idea of pharmaceutical care mainly, and clinical pharmacy in Poland. Those are the fields that we feel that need to develop more in Poland when it comes to pharmacy. And for that, we have a few projects, namely the School of Trainers, which is the training project. We have soft-skilled trainers to deliver trainings for people around Poland. Mainly pharmacy students, but also non-pharmacy students sometimes. I'm personally myself a pharmaceutical student and also a soft skills trainer. Then we have leaders in training, which is a period for preparation for the future executive board functions, and future of pharmacists, which is a series of lectures or meetings with people from the pharmaceutical industry who will tell us how the world looks like in pharmacy. And then we have a soft skill event as well, also carried out by the School of Trainers. And we participate in a Slovak, Polish, Czech leadership camp, which is a soft skills event between Slovakia, Poland, and Czech Republic. And there we have some conferences, mainly the PPSA Pharmaceutical Care Competition, which is also connected with compounding competition, National Congress, Christmas Eve. On all of these conferences, we have lectures and workshops related to the pharmaceutical industry. They're always about some specific topic. And then we have public health events like Consult with the Pharmacist, where we measure glucose level and blood pressure level for people around shopping centers, and antibiotics under the scrutiny of pharmacists, where we carry out lessons for people of all ages, so at schools or also for elderly people. And here's our contact. You can follow us on our social media. Also, you can follow our main social media, which is the same, it's just without the Sosnowiec. Thank you.
Thank you for your explanation. Lastly, let's, Jaume, could you please introduce FEF to us?
Yes, thank you, Sarah. My name is Jaume Romero. I was the ex-vice president of communication of FEF. And well, to start talking about the Spanish Federation of Pharmacy Students, I would like to show you my screen. Let's see. I have no PowerPoint presentation, but this is the main page of the Spanish Students Federation. And talking about the history of Spain, it started in Las Canarias, which is not properly the peninsula, the center of Spain, and all the structure of this federation has been constructed through 60 years of life, and we've got like very similar to IPSF or EPSA organigram structure. And well, in the line of my prior colleague Piotr, we are doing several events. This year, for example, we are committed to be responsible of all the volunteers and the package, the students package of the FIP Congress 2020 in Sevilla, which we expect it will not be very much cancelled. It is right now, but soon we will know the new dates. And let me, I will stop about this. And well, in a nutshell, FEF gathers a total of 12 out of 23 pharmacy faculties and reaches the representation of 20,000 pharmacy students. It's non-religious, it's non-profit, without political conflict of interest. And the main purpose is to represent the union of all Spanish pharmacy students. And the second aim is to highlight the importance of pharmaceutical activity in society. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Now that we've learned a little bit more about each country's association, we are ready to start the interview portion of our conference. The first segment of the interview, we will ask you a series of questions about how your life has changed since the COVID-19 pandemic started. And then in the second, we will ask you about the topics of our last 4 conferences: scientific progress, domestic violence, mental health, and educational innovation, to see how each country is tackling these issues. For the first question, I would like to ask you if you are currently in quarantine, and if so, for how long? Piotr, could you start, please?
Yeah, the lockdown started around 10th of March, I think. So we just suddenly had to stop going to school. All the universities on lockdown. And since then, my life has greatly changed because I have all the classes online. It took about 2 weeks to convert all of that into online. But I think I'm adapted quite quickly to it. And some of the departments at our university, you could see that we're very proficient in the online services, and they could provide our education through online very quickly. And some of the departments are still a bit slacking. They're still behind. You can see that, but we managed to get by somehow, and I think it's all actually good right now. It's just some things like compounding, which can be really done online. You can watch videos of how to make some ointment or something, but it's not the same, definitely. So I think we're gonna have to repeat that in summer or after the pandemic stops. But most of the other classes, I think, are all good. So I think even though my life is gonna be happening online, I think it's gonna have the same outcome afterwards.
Great. Jaume?
Well, I will speak on behalf of my colleagues at the university, but I will give you another approach, which is how is reality in community pharmacies, because the coronavirus crisis started very soon in January or December in China, but in Spain it did not actually happen until March. Yes, and I was working at the very city center of Barcelona, and policies were not alarming the population, and on the 14th of March it all began. The lockdown began, and only essential services were available, including community pharmacies. And well, because the lockdown, all the economic activity has got lower as in all the countries. And well, on the student perspective, in the line of what Piotr was talking, but not as efficient, because there has been a lot of trouble on the online follow-up. Students are having very huge trouble on doing huge, how to say, work, homework, and the same time professors and teachers are like doing crazy amount of hours to evaluate their students. And for example, talking about the last year of pharmacy degree, which includes all the internship in a hospital or in a community pharmacy, one thing that they have developed is to evaluate online a total amount of 50% of that internship. So if you were able to do the 50% presential, and you have only the 50% left, you can really graduate on July. If you have not done the 50 and the 50, you will have to do what is left on September, October, or whenever it's possible. Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you so much for your input. Jenny, could you tell us a little bit about this?
Sure. So in the United States, it differs a lot based on what state you live in. And so I live in Michigan, so kind of in the northern part of the US, and we're under a stay-at-home order by our governor until May 28th, I believe. However, in certain states, that's really different. So I think in the state of Georgia, in the South, people are able to go out again, and restaurants and things like that are opening back up. I have a family member in South Carolina, which is also in the southern part of the US, and she went back to work the other day. She doesn't have to wear a mask or anything like that. But in Michigan, it's still pretty different. As of yesterday, though, some people are allowed to go back to work. So like construction workers and I think real estate agents and things like that. but most other things are still not open yet. So we're supposed to be staying at home. I've just been staying with family during this time. My university closed on March 11th, I think it was. So kind of about the same time everyone's, it sounds like, has maybe started to close. And we finished our semester last week, but in terms of grade schools, all through Michigan, they're closed for the entire rest of the year. I think they're doing some online things and things like that, not to the degree that universities are doing. We still had to carry on just as usual and take all of our exams online. We had to have online classroom meetings and things like that, but I think grade schools are still doing like a smaller version of that, so to speak.
Thank you so much.
All right, that's really interesting that the different states have different opening times and, you know, are opening gradually along the time. But yeah, for the second question, we would like to ask you what restrictions you are facing during this lockdown period in your country. For example, can't you really like leave your house, and what are the exceptions? You've covered a bit of that, but yeah, if you could go ahead, Jaume, and then yeah, I'll give the word to someone else.
Good. Right now we are notified from our government that we will do a 4-phase, how to say, de-escalation, or in order to stop the lockdown, we will be having 4 phases. We are right now on the 0 phase, which means that we can really go out on 2 schedules. The main very early in the morning and very late in the afternoon to do sports, only on that time. Through the day, we are able to go out to do any essential movement, like buying in the grocery stores, going to the pharmacy, or going to the hospital. The phase 2, the second phase, it's going to be about opening restaurants, opening bars and hotels at a 30% of activity, which means we can just like take beers, but hey, you have to be 2 meters from me, because it's I don't know how to say, but because Spanish people, we are very not charmed, but how to say, very passionate on social activities. I personally, as a professional, as a sanitary professional, I don't think it's a good measure, but still it's what it is. And then the 3rd phase and the 4th phase, it's all about doing that scale up. Like, it's not going to be the 30%, it's going to be the 40, the 50, etc. So we are like, the perspective is to begin again with normal activity on September. We shall see.
Very interesting indeed. How about you, Janae? Do you have, like in the United States, this kind of 4-step plan, or is it different?
I think it's a little bit different. We're not always sure exactly what the next step is going to be. We kind of wait and see. At least in Michigan, they keep extending our stay-at-home order. It started back in March, and they said, you know, it would end of March, and then we'd turn on our TVs end of March, and no, we're going to do 2 more weeks now. Okay, now 2 more. So they keep pushing it off. But basically what our stay-at-home order means is that we are legally supposed to stay at home unless we need to leave the house. It's very unclear what that means, need to leave the house. We are allowed to go grocery shopping at any time of day if the store is open. We're allowed to go for walks or bike rides at any time of day if we want to. We are supposed to wear masks if we're in any sort of store. A lot of stores now have signs saying you have to wear masks to come in, but we don't have to wear masks if we're out like walking or running or something like that. Even though they say we have to wear masks, they say that they, being the government, says that they won't prosecute people who don't wear them. They're not going to be arresting people. So it kind of creates a lot of gray area in terms of like can we like do this? Can we not do this? Should we be doing this? So it's very confusing right now. And right now I'm in northern Michigan, which is quite rural. Whereas I'm from the southern part of the state. I go to university not too far from Detroit, which is very urban. So it's a very different feel in terms of how people are handling this whole stay-at-home order, who's going out, who's wearing masks and things like that. So it's been pretty interesting, but we are technically allowed to leave the house, but we're supposed to try to not leave the house.
Yeah, that's interesting because here in Portugal, we're actually having some people that are getting arrested because of violating the the mask obligation for going outside. Some people are getting arrested for that. That's interesting that in the United States that's not happening as much. Yeah. How about you, Piotr, in Poland?
Yeah, well, in Poland, at first we were on full lockdown, so even the forests were locked. Then we had to wear masks, and we still have to wear masks all the time. Actually, you can get a fine, like a few zlotys for not wearing a mask, which is also a prosecution in Poland here. And now there are 4 phases of opening the country. First, they started opening some shopping centers, some bigger markets. Then they're gonna open some gyms as well, and also schools, but mostly kindergartens and elementary schools. I don't think they're gonna open universities, and it seems that they're gonna be locked down until the pandemic ends because, there's a lot of people moving around the whole country. And yeah, we have to wear masks. We have to keep the distance, at least 2 meters or even more sometimes. In the shops, you can see huge queues. Like you can have even 20 people across the whole street just standing to one shop, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, I think people mostly follow the restrictions, and you don't see people without masks. Sometimes you can find like one person like this, but the peer pressure will force them to wear a mask anyway. So I think it's good to see that people are following it.
Okay, amazing. Yeah.
Okay, now for the third question, a bit more on a personal point of view. Have you had any issues on getting medication or other essential products? Do you think that suppliers like pharmacies and supermarkets in your country are dealing well with this pandemic? Well, Jenny, do you want to start?
Sure. I haven't had any issues getting any sort of necessary products. When I go to the store, which isn't very often, usually my husband goes on our behalf, but the shelves can be low on certain things, but for the most part, things are still available. I know toilet paper has been a big item that everybody's been buying constantly, and we have here too noticed, at least at the beginning, how it was low on shelves, but you could still find it places. You might have to go to a different store, or you might, there might only be like a couple packages on the shelves, but for the most part it's been available. I haven't really been to pharmacies too much. I was taken out of my rotation that I was supposed to be completing through the end of April, where I was in a hospital outpatient pharmacy, and I got pulled from that rotation because our university wasn't going to allow our students to continue anymore in the pharmacies. So I can't speak necessarily to how medication supply is going and things like that. I know initially we were out of stock of masks, and that was way before things even shut down. So that was an item that was low. But other than that, then I guess that's all I can really say about that.
Thank you. Piotr, do you want to say something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for the products, from the groceries and shopping, in the beginning, you could see that most of the shops were empty, which was pretty crazy. But then actually they started refilling it very quickly, and they just wanted people to stop panicking and to see that the other shops are empty so people won't go to shops. But now it's easily accessible, and I often go to shops like once a week, and it's cool. But you can be in a queue for about 1 hour, but still you can get anything you want, which is okay. But for medications, I think the biggest problem is that we don't have enough medical protection, and that goes for hospitals and especially for pharmacies. We don't have enough medical protections. We don't even have the glass walls in most pharmacies. So we start incorporating these. And also pharmacists are now allowed to write prescriptions. So if someone is at a greater health risk, they can get a prescription written by a pharmacist, which would never happen in Poland. And it's just for the pandemic. So it's pretty interesting how the law also goes forward with the pandemic. And I think that will be it for. I also didn't go to pharmacies that often. I just read the news. So.
Oh, that's amazing for the pharmaceuticals. John, do you wanna say something?
Well, regarding groceries, toilet paper crisis. Yes, that's the general opinion, and yeah, that happened here too. But it was a very soon refill, so no big deal. But it created a bit of a shock. They said that you should invest on toilet paper. Anyway, just a joke. Regarding groceries, no other big deal. Regarding pharmacies, yes. Regarding some essential products like these hand sanitizers, paracetamol, because in Spain we get a lot of OTC to get in our homes. We ran out of paracetamol for some days. We are running out still of gloves, hand sanitizer, and masks. These three products, we are having huge trouble. A lot of industries which are not related to pharmacy are reconverting, like doing some tech transfer to innovate their production and to create gloves, to create hand sanitizer and the masks, even though they are not supposed to, because we are trying to buy it to China, we are trying to buy it to anywhere, and we are getting it in bad quality, or we are getting it stolen, because any country that wants to buy something will get those masks stolen on the way sometimes. So yeah, these three things are running out. And there was one policy regarding masks, because masks are like the one product which is more used. Mask policy was given from the government of Spain, that tried to like bring one mask per week to every single citizen. So yeah, that was kind of a nice policy.
Well, that was nice. So I think Portugal is familiar with your countries, because in the beginning our supermarkets were empty, but now it's normal again. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. John, regarding what you were saying about the medicines in the pharmacy, AEFFUL is organizing a public health campaign, a PHC, on medical shortages next week, especially because it is a topic that's more important nowadays, because with the COVID-19 situation, obviously more medical shortage problems arise. So I hope you guys tune in and see the progress of that in our social media. Let's continue with a question more related to the environment. We have been hearing a lot about the positive impact that the decrease in human activity has had in the world. And I would like to know, like, you can notice a change in the pollution in your city or your country?
Yeah, actually, we had a huge problem with smog and a lot of issues of pollution recently. But since the COVID-19 started, I think it just decreases. But now another problem arises is animals going into cities, especially in big cities like Warsaw. You can have deers, so it's pretty crazy. And police are actually more busy catching the animals than doing anything else right now. So yeah, there are both sides of this.
That's really funny. Jaume, could you tell us a little bit about this, please?
We got dolphins. Yeah, we got dolphins on the beaches. Yeah, that's very nice. Yeah, pollution has decreased a lot, and we feel it. And also, yeah, all the pigeons and other species which are natural from Barcelona and Madrid, big cities, are taking the streets, but not as much as in Australia, which you can see kangaroos going around. Not big differences. the government is saying that pollution levels have low down, but actually we are like convinced that unless there are some policies that take care of this change, everything will go back to how it was. So I don't know. I don't feel very hopeful on this issue.
I understand. It's a little hard to be optimistic when you know everyone's waiting for everything to go back to exactly how it was before. But maybe we could use this opportunity to grow and learn a little more. Janae, could you tell us a little more about the US, please?
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm currently in a very rural area, so it's been a little bit harder to appreciate the decrease in pollution since where I am, everyone's very spaced apart. There are no big cities. It's mostly trees all the time anyway. And even where I go to university, it's far enough outside the Metro Detroit area that the pollution isn't as big of an issue and things like that. So I don't get into the city that much. But I would imagine that pollution has decreased a lot across our whole country, just in terms of like New York City, seeing it on the news, how normally, cars are everywhere and the streets are just completely empty. And I think the same goes for like San Francisco and Los Angeles and cities like that. Places that would normally be just packed with cars and transportation are pretty empty. So yeah.
I actually live in a small village too, so I don't see any difference as well. But I believe what you were saying. I can't imagine New York being so empty, and for sure that's having an impact on the environment. Thank you.
All right, so wrapping up a bit of this first chapter, may we say, I wanted to ask you, what is the most difficult part of being in this quarantine? It's a bit more personal, but yeah, you can go ahead, Jaume, and then I'll give the word to someone else.
As I would like to come with the topic that Gabriel sent to me, and I think sent to all of us, about how we the speakers were supposed to talk about mental health. And I think mental health is the great issue, at least here in Spain, and for me personally. Even though I can go out doing my 8-hour schedule as I do normally without any quarantine, I feel sometimes depression, I feel sometimes anxiety because of this shock in the social motion. Everybody is coming to the pharmacy, getting antidepressants, getting something to sleep, getting something because they are having muscle pain, because they do not gym and exercise their bodies, and they can sleep because of that. And it's all this cycle that I am feeling. And well, hopefully, because of they are opening now the exercise schedule time in Spain, which is actually I don't like that, because everybody's going out, and it's like, yeah, in Barcelona we are 2,000, we are 2 million people. It's 2 million people going to the same place anyway. But yeah, I think mental health is the main issue.
Very interesting. Yeah. So picking up a bit on that of the mental health issues, what have you guys been doing to adapt your routines to stay healthy mentally? Have you done anything? Have you stopped exercising at all? Have you what measures have you taken? For example, Piotr or Janae, who wants to speak?
Maybe I could speak. Yeah, so I actually threw out some old furniture and kind of assembled a crafty gym at my home. So far, I worked out only 2 times, but it's a progress already. Small steps, But I think, to adapt, I'm just having some webinars and hangouts with my friends online, quite a lot actually. Like everything just turned into online, so even the social gatherings are online now. Also playing some video games with my friends, which is a bit more interactive form of socializing. And Yeah, I'm just trying to keep a good sleep hygiene. So literally, I couldn't fall asleep until like 3 a.m. normally, and now I go to sleep before 12 a.m., which is pretty impressive. just super motivated to take care of my health more than ever, which is actually a good side effect of the whole pandemic.
Really interesting. How about you, Janae?
I've been trying to do my best to take care of my mental health since gyms have been closed here at first, because normally my husband and I go to the gym a few times a week and lift weights, and first we were kind of unsure how we should still try to incorporate an exercise routine into our lives, but for the past few weeks we've been running pretty regularly, so it's been nice to be able to get outside and get fresh air. At first sometimes we don't maybe feel like getting off the couch, but then we always feel really good afterwards, so I think that's been really important to maintain mental health. And then still doing online meetings, like Piotr said, with family and friends and things like that, things that maybe we'd otherwise do in person, but it's okay to still meet with people online and touch base with all the family members. So that's been important as well, I think.
Yes, because besides of all the exercise that it's not being doing as regularly, also the social gathering aspect of it, it's also taking a toll on lots of people. And not only in mental health, but we'll discuss something afterwards about domestic violence. And maybe that's also one of the issues. Who knows? Yeah.
Okay, since we started talking about the topics of our last conference, let's talk about science progress. So going to move on to the next segment, and we'll start discussing these topics. And one of these topics will be science innovation. So do you think science is moving forward at a faster rate than usual in your country? Can you give us some examples? So Janae, do you want to say something?
Sure. So I think science is in a way moving at a faster rate. I know that, for the example, the FDA has kind of altered how they're approaching new drugs and things like that. I looked a little bit into like remdesivir, which is produced by an American pharmaceutical company, and kind of how that's been working with trying to fast track it in a way using like compassionate use rules so that individuals who maybe wouldn't qualify for a clinical trial can still on a case-by-case basis get approval to use this drug. And the FDA claims that they're looking at those applications like within 24 hours, which I guess is faster than what they normally do to try to get it out really fast. And they're also using it under like an emergency use authorization, which is another sort of like shortcut in a way to try to get it out to lots of different hospitals and be able to use that drug just to see if maybe it would be helpful, since it's shown to maybe show some progress. But I think a big concern with that is just maintaining the integrity of like the scientific method and like making sure we have accurate evidence behind a medication, because it's really enticing to try to put a medication out there really fast because we think maybe it might work. But then even if it does, it's hard to kind of go back and say, well, we changed so many variables and we really did this in such an unconventional way. Like, does this hold up to our standard of what evidence-based medicine is? So I think that's a really big concern, and kind of trying to toe that line between getting medications to people if we think maybe they will help because it is an emergency and we're in a pandemic, but also maintaining what we know to be good science.
Thank you. Piotr, do you know about Poland?
Yeah, I think in Poland, it's mostly like in every other country, the vaccine research is rapidly growing, and it's in emergency state, so it's obviously faster. And also a lot of drug repurposing. Like we have drugs like hydroxychloroquine, of course, the one the most talked about in the beginning, but also amiodarone or verapamil, the antiarrhythmic drugs, are also repurposed to fight with the virus. There might be some issues as well with the evidence-based, but yeah, I think it's because everything is so done so fast in such haste. It's in emergency state, so we have to take some measures out. And also, we had some innovative research, like for example, the protease inhibitors are very researched upon. And in specific, in the city called Wrocław, at the medical university, a professor just found out that the coronavirus has a specific protease that binds to a specific place in in a protein, and it binds with glutamine. It's with high selectivity, so you can actually find a drug specific for coronavirus. But from what I know, there are about 200 of the strains of the virus right now, so it might be not that selective right now. We just have to research more into the virus, how it works and how it's built. But there's definitely potential for some new drugs that were never discovered before. So I'm very eager to see where we go next.
Thank you. Let's stay positives. So, Jaume, what about Spain?
Spain has shown to be not very good at prevention, but I want to defend my bad scenario in one good topic, which is clinical essays. Because Spain really got very confident on its health system, and it has shown up that we should be more preventive. But in the research and development aspect, that good health system that we have has encouraged 58 clinical essays that will reach 28,000 patients to develop vaccines, to develop new medicines. So because of Spain is one of the regions in Europe where investment on clinical research is some of the best spots. The scientific innovation we have done has shown up to be very good. And I would like to highlight that, even though there is no excuse on having that very bad policy on prevention, but still we'll come up with something good.
Thank you. It was good news.
Our next question is about our second conference that was about domestic violence. This is a big issue that in Portugal increased with social isolation. Do you know if this is also the case in your countries? Piotr, do you know?
Yes, actually, it seems mostly for the people who already had the issue of domestic violence, this issue arose. But also due to some people overusing alcohol to cope with the whole pandemic. The situation is kind of caused by the pandemic. And we can actually see an increase. There's about 90,000 people who are caused by the domestic violence. And about 70,000 of the people are women. So we can see that there's an increase, definitely, compared to last year. There are also a lot of call centers and a lot of psychologists and doctors are on helping people with who are facing domestic violence. Police is also very aware. They're checking up on people who were previously having this issue. So I think the country is trying to handle it, and this might not be this big in a few months. So I'm really hopeful that this will decrease due to the measures that the country is taking.
Yes, let's hope so. Thank you. Jaume, could you tell us a bit more about the measures that have been taken in Spain about this issue?
Talking about numbers or statistics, everything that has been published says that there has not been an increase on domestic violence, but there has been an increase on calls for information. So people are super aware about this topic, and they kind of mostly women are super preventive on this issue, and there has been this call center 016 improved, which was not was not available last year. And also there is an encoded message which is called mask 19, which means, hey, I'm having domestic violence because of this or that. But yeah, we feel optimistic. There has not been bad news. Yeah.
That is good. That is very good. Janae, how's the situation in America?
My understanding is that domestic violence, at least reports of it with intimate partner violence, have increased in homes where maybe that was already an issue. I think like just the stressors of being home together can cause more of those reports to come in. Interestingly enough, it looks like reports of things like child abuse and neglect have gone down, and it's speculated since kids aren't in school and normally it's like a teacher or something like that who might recognize the signs of that and be able to report it. So while those numbers might look promising, it's a bit scary to think that maybe kids just aren't being recognized, and maybe those numbers have also gone up just like with intimate partner violence. It's been interesting though. I learned that there's a nonprofit organization in New York City that allows women to text them if they're having issues, like a 24-hour helpline type thing. They're having domestic violence issues, and then that organization can call 911 on their behalf, because apparently, and I didn't know this before, that to be able to text 911 or emergency number is not available everywhere in the country. And I even looked into it in Michigan, so near Detroit, there are certain areas of Detroit where you can text if you're having an emergency to 911, but other areas where you can't. So that's been an issue too, in terms of people being able to access the help they need in a way that's safe. So yeah.
Thank you so much. It is really preoccupying to hear that maybe kids are not having the same attention from teachers because they're away from school. But I think that's a really good measure, and we might learn a lot from it.
So for the next question, which would be the last question regarding the topics of the previous conferences, I would like to ask you about college and educational innovation. Have you started taking online classes for the ones who apply? Because Jaume is not taking classes, but you might know a little bit about this. But are you taking online classes and online exams, and how have things changed in your faculty during this pandemic? For Janae, for example, to start.
So I had been taking online classes up until the end of our semester. I think I mentioned earlier, I finished last week, I think it was, and we still continued with our typical classes, and it was definitely very difficult for our administration to move everything online. I know that was a really big stressor, I'm sure, for everybody's administration and faculty at their universities to all of a sudden pivot and have everything online. So that had continued, and now I'm about to enter my last year of my program. So I have all clinical rotations until I graduate. My clinical rotation that was going to start next week was going to be an inpatient cardiology rotation, but that has been canceled because they're still not allowing us students to go into the hospital. So they created a new rotation for us called emergency preparedness, which I think might be kind of interesting. It will be all work from home. We will do like a Zoom meeting with a preceptor to discuss projects we've been working on, but we'll be able to look at patients' charts who were admitted to the university hospital for COVID to see like the course of their illness and kind of how it played out in practice. So I think that will be really interesting, and we'll kind of see how the rest of the year goes. Like I said, at least for Michigan, it's kind of on almost a week by week basis, trying to figure out what's going to be happening. But I saw that, so in the state just south of Michigan is Ohio, and for their grade schools, their plan is, I think for this fall, to have students maybe come in 2 days a week, like half of the students, and then the other half of the students come in 2 other days a week. And so that there's just less students in the building at one time, and then have the rest be online, which I thought was really interesting. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe my university did something similar for the students in the years below me. Some of the other universities in Michigan have pretty much said this fall we're doing online classes. My university has not made that commitment yet. They're really holding out, hoping they can do in-person classes. But I think they're going to start exploring some other options of maybe, okay, a small group of students could come in like this day or something to discuss, but then the rest of the time do online coursework. So it's definitely been a big change. It's been really interesting. But I think we've done our best to rise to the challenge.
Yeah, really interesting. I would like to ask Raumer and or Piotr if you know of anything that's been done that's new because of the online adaptation. For example, not only the Zoom, the classes by internet, but anything else, any innovation? Do you know of anything? It could be either one of you.
Yeah, I think like it's mostly when you see the creativity of the professors. Like I had the pharmacognosy lab today, which was basically a video on YouTube showing us some reactions, and then we had some tasks, and we were researching bases of with the plants. So it was pretty interesting to just kind of research into pharmacognosy a bit more and not just look at the reactions, write a report of the lab, and get out of the lab. It was a bit more immersive than usual. So I think it could kind of improve the recall of the information that you learn in the lab if you do it in such way. And also I've heard there are some attempts to VR, mostly for the labs, especially like VR, but not in my university. But generally I heard that there's some attempts on VR, so it might be interesting to see, because if it's gonna last longer and we have literally no way to practice on some practical skills, like compounding, for example, for pharmacists. This is very practical, and you can't just learn it by watching a video. You have to try it yourself. You have to fail a bit and see how it goes. So maybe if you get into VR a bit more, it can improve it.
Wow, virtual reality. I didn't even know that could be an option, and certainly for classes that have that practical and laboratory intensive part, it's really interesting to see that Poland and some parts of Poland are trying it out, like testing it and seeing if it works. How about you, Jaume?
Well, the innovation came this time from the student side, not from teachers, because for the first time in the life of universities, students wanted to speak with the tutors much more than usual. That was a joke, but actually is real. And yeah, apart from that, no other innovation apart from all that online classes and materials.
Yeah, this impact on education might might be bad in some cases. For example, some students might not be so accustomed to the online classes and not learn as much. But sometimes it brings some new innovations, and how, like Piotr said, the virtual reality innovation for laboratory classes would be really interesting to see. Very nice.
Okay, so we have questions, but let's go to a few more. We'll start with questions from the public. So if anyone has any questions to one or all of our speakers, please leave your comments in the section and we can ask them.
Piotr, we got a question for you. Is it true that in Poland you have to take selfies to prove you are home? We heard about this on a news article, and we wanted to check with you.
No, I don't think so, because I haven't taken any selfies so far. No, we just have restrictions to wear masks at all time, and there's police patrolling. So if you're without a mask and you find a policeman, then you're either good at talking or you have to pay.
Thank you. This is we thought it would be we would be fake news, but we thought it was funny, so we decided to ask you.
For Janae, so the United States unfortunately have the highest number of COVID-19 cases out of every country in the world. Does this scare you in any way?
That's a good question. Yes and no. It's so hard to answer that, and it's so hard what to make of all this news. A lot of it does have to do with what area you're in. So, I mean, the cases in New York City are super duper high, and it makes sense. People, live very close to each other. It's a very densely populated city. Even in Michigan, in the city of Detroit, the numbers are actually reported differently for the city itself as opposed to the county it's in, because the city has just so many cases. And once again, very densely populated. So it is scary to see that. I'm glad that I don't live in a really densely populated city. I think that helps a little bit, feeling like at least I know that, there's no reason why I have to be really close to people or be around where there's a lot of cases. In the county I'm in right now, I think there might be like 20 cases or something. Once you get north in Michigan, the cases start dropping off because there's hardly any people here anyway. So I guess it makes sense, but it is somewhat scary. I will say that.
Okay, John, this is for you. So there are a lot of people that cross the border between our two countries every day, right? So between Portugal and Spain. But as soon as crossing the border become restricted, this caused a lot of anger to many Portuguese people. Do you think this is a big issue for Spain as well?
But this question is, I don't understand the question. It's who is getting angry?
Portuguese people, because they cannot go to Spain to do their business, or do you think Spanish people think the same? Are they angry because they are not able to go to Portugal?
Oh, well, definitely. Here in Spain, we all really want to keep on with our businesses. We are very scared on how economy is going to develop, because everybody who is working in a company as a worker or as a CEO are really panicking, because government is saying that they will help with some economic help, but it will go into a very long delay, and we all really want to keep up with economy. And what I think should have been done is that all the frontiers, all the borders, where there was supposed to be some movement, essential movement for a certain company, there should have been, for example, tests, or this immunoglobulin test, which tells you if you have already got the coronavirus, etc. But as far as in Spain, we have huge trouble on detection. That's why they got super strict for people to come in and come out. On the weekends, people want to go to the second residence. Nobody can, and that's it.
Thank you.
For our next question, we wanted to ask, what is the thing that closed that you miss the most in your country? Maybe you could start with Janae.
Sure. That's a tough one. I think what I miss the most, I do miss the gym a lot, and I love milk tea. It's really popular around my university, and this past semester I've been obsessed with it, and I crave it all the time, and so it's been really hard not having to have it. So yeah, I'd probably say some of the milk tea places around my city.
I do understand how you would miss that. Jaume, could you tell us what you missed the most that closed?
Yes, honestly, partying out. Oh my God, yeah. Getting drunk in a Zoom session is not the same. I had to say it.
Well, I'm glad you have still been having fun, even if it's only through Zoom. And then Piotr, what do you miss the most?
Yeah, I think I relate to parties and social gatherings in general. Like all the events that are canceled, like the AEFFUL Congress right now. So that's what I miss the most, the huge gathering with people and partying with people from all over the world, getting to know everyone. It's not the same on Zoom, but it's a kind of replacement, but it's definitely not the same immersion that you have in real life.
Everyone misses parties. Well, when the pandemic is over and the social isolation ends, you are all invited to come to one of AEFFUL's parties.
So some questions from the audience. I'll start with Manuel Duarte Almeida, who asks for everyone, From an economical point of view, how is the SARS-CoV-2 pandemic affecting your country and those close to you? Economic point of view. We can start off with maybe Piotr.
You mean the first question?
Do you want me to repeat it, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Repeat, because I was some disruption.
It's fine. From an economical point of view, how is the SARS-CoV-2 pandemic affecting your country and those close to you? It's from Manuel Almeida.
From an economical point of view, I think a lot of companies are taking some measures to survive somehow. So the ones that can work from home. But for example, my dad is working at a car dealership and he cannot work from home because he has to accept cars to be repaired. So they are working in like 3 people team, and they have huge safety measures there. So that's how they kind of get by with the company. They also have decreased payments, and most companies also practice that they decrease payments for the workers, and they try to kind of preserve some money. But I think the program that is now happening, that everything's reopening slowly, faculty by faculty, facility by facility, I think it's going to help the Polish economy to get back in some way, but it's not going to be perfect. It's definitely going to be a hit.
Very nice. How about Spain? Jaume, do you think that's any different from Poland?
I think it's very similar. My personal experience is that me, my dad, and my mom, we are all having trouble, but different kind of troubles. For example, I had to leave my pharmacy store because it was in the city, in the very city center, no tourism, broken down in a financial aspect. I had to change to some community pharmacy that was like getting the income from neighbor and not from tourism. My dad, for example, is on food logistics. He's getting overwhelmed. He's getting a lot of new businesses going on. And my mom is on education, so she is going to have a lot of trouble on doing like 26 hours per day on tutor and mentoring. So yeah, I think more or less we are all in that situation.
All right. So how about the United States?
The economic situation has also been really difficult here. I've seen lots of headlines of different restaurants that have been around a while have to close, or other sorts of businesses that are shutting down. So it's definitely been a really big struggle. And it's on such a case-by-case basis with like the families that it affects. Some people are still able to work, of course, and can still get their normal salary. Other people maybe who had hourly jobs and can no longer work those jobs, then they don't have an income anymore, which is really difficult. And in the state of Michigan, I'm with every state, but it's different how you go about applying for unemployment. And I know that our unemployment telephone lines have been just completely crazy and bogged down with lots of callers. I think there were like 700 callers one day who are on hold. It makes the news a lot, how there's been a lot of difficulties trying to figure out how to work out the unemployment system and get people the benefits and how that all gets worked out, which is also hard too, since it takes a lot of money to try to support everybody. And unfortunately, money doesn't grow on trees, so it's just difficult all around to try to find for everyone, I think, to make ends meet in this time if they don't have like a steady salary that they can continue working on.
Okay, so
Thank you.
this is no.
We have time for one more question. Yeah.
Oh, great.
We just got a question from someone in the audience, Miguel Grincho. He asked about the future. What about the future? Do you think that your country and humanity in general will learn from this crisis and will be applied from now on? I could start with Jaume.
there has been a lot of talk on how this super fast online adaptation through all the sectors has come to the idea that maybe in this near future, online way of communicating and even working will become a reality, a common reality. And because this kind of pushed fast adaptation through all the sectors, I think that will be the most relevant.
I agree. Piotr, do you have anything to say about the future in Poland?
Yeah, I think for most part, I really hope, and I think it's gonna actually be reality, that people will start taking seriously viruses in general, because we are highly disregarding all the diseases that come from viruses or bacteria, and we're overusing antibiotics as an effect also. And I think right now with the pandemic, everybody is sitting at home and reconsidering all of this, and I think as a community we will change definitely in this way. And also the online adaptation will definitely help us be more flexible, all the companies. And I think for pharmacy, it's pretty interesting. As I mentioned before in one of the questions, pharmacists can now write prescriptions in serious health danger. So I think it will stay, and also the role of pharmacists is increasing, and everybody sees that, because pharmacists were also quite disregarded in Poland, and nowadays they have more respect due to the way that we fight with the coronavirus. So I think this is going to also be a good year for pharmacists once we get back from the pandemic.
Thank you. Let us hope so that this becomes a learning opportunity. And Janae, would you like to end this question?
Sure. So I definitely agree with Piotr and Jaume. It's the whole idea of moving things online, even though we were kind of forced to do it now we have that infrastructure in place and know we can do it. So I think that's going to be a huge plus that has kind of come out of this, or like a silver lining, so to speak. And two, just in terms of people kind of learning, or companies learning, you know, it might be cheaper to have people work from home where they don't have to like heat a big building full of people who are just sitting at computers anyway. Maybe it's more economical to have people work from their homes. And sometimes it can increase productivity too. I mean, I know just with my classes, so it can be hard to find the motivation to like be self-directed with my learning. Since I didn't have to commute anymore, I could just get out of bed, log on, do my stuff that I had to do, and we could get it done actually a lot quicker and save time, and then there were time for other things. So I think that's like a big learning point to that. And like Piotr said, kind of the idea of showcasing what pharmacists can do and how we can help in this kind of pandemic, I think is really important. I've seen lots of things on social media of my classmates advocating for the profession of pharmacy and how important we are in this, not only as like an area of expertise, but also just being on the front lines, recommending care for patients, or, you know, if you're in Poland, maybe writing a script for a patient who comes into the pharmacy, which is really awesome.
Thank you very much. This was our last question. And I remind everyone that you can watch this and all other 4 conferences in AEFFUL's YouTube channel.
So now we would like to leave a big thank you to Janae, Piotr, and Jaume for accepting our invitation to speak today, and also to everyone that participated in this, and to all the other conferences in this cycle. So we hope you enjoy it, and we would like to remind every student at home that even in these during singular events, we are currently living, and AEFFUL is, and we always strive to be, do estudante para o estudante. So good night, everyone. Thank you.